In Southern California, Kim Tan, 18, is living his best surfer bro life, catching waves and pretending he's in a surf commercial. But then, during a solo shower under the open sky, because that's totally normal, the mood shifts. He remembers his older brother, Kim Won, basically telling him life's all about eating caviar, not chasing dreams. At a cafe, Tan's American buddy is being nosy, asking if it bugs him that his family doesn't support him. Meanwhile, in Seoul, Choi Young-do, heir to a hotel chain, is making bullying an art form. He throws a baseball at a student's head and follows it up with the line, "Your future? It's toast." Then he leaves his lackeys to handle the actual beating. Later, he bumps into Cha Yun-sang, a high schooler who's juggling part-time jobs and dodging creepy old men at a motorcycle shop. When the people in the shop refused to pay for the food she delivered, she called the cops. Young-do's intrigued. Yun-sang's life is all about working her butt off. Her friend Yoon Chan-young suggests dating, but Yun-sang's like, "No thanks, I'll take a side of income with my self-worth." Meanwhile, Chan-young's girlfriend, Lee Bona, thinks Yun-sang's flirting. Yun-sang, with the skill of a seasoned diplomat, deflects her accusation so well that Bona's left wondering if she's insulted or just confused. Back in the US, Yun-sang's sister is in a toxic relationship and can't seem to handle a disagreement without someone throwing a punch. Back in Korea, Yun-sang's mom is working as a housekeeper for the Jaeguk family. Rachel, a rich kid who's already got everything except happiness, finds out her mom's plotting a remarriage to get cozy with Young-do's family. Rachel's not having it, but Young-do's like, "Chill, I got this." Yun-sang, fed up with her life of cleaning dishes and pretending she's fine, dreams of escaping to the US on top of this. Her sister is also getting married. Packing up, she leaves a note for her mom. "I'll make it. Just hang tight. We're getting out of here soon." Meanwhile, Rachel is preparing to visit Tan, arguing with her mom about remarriage, because nothing says family bonding like a good old-fashioned argument about money and marriage. Tan, however, is ignoring Rachel's calls, reminiscing about the carefree life his brother told him to have. He casually mentions to his friend that it's the anniversary of his engagement. Yun-sang's already regretting her life choices as she waits for a ride. She overhears Rachel spinning a yarn about Tan picking her up. They exchange an awkward smile because, clearly, neither of them has someone waiting for them. Rachel, irritated, confronts Yun-sang, but Yun-sang plays it cool, explaining her smile wasn't mocking, just solidarity. Yun-sang walks through a rundown neighborhood, staring at the house like it's a horror movie set. She confronts a man who was with another woman in the house. Yun-sang is shocked and asked about the marriage, and he told her they are not even in a relationship, and they just live together. He then casually tells her her sister's skipping school. Back at Tan's house, he declines a party invite and instead reflects on life while journaling at a cafe. In Korea, Won is at a Jaeguk board meeting, looking like a stressed-out CEO. The tension's so thick, especially with his dad's covert surveillance and Chan-young's dad sneaking behind him like a chess piece. At the beach, Tan notices Yun-sang, standing out like a sore thumb with her suitcase. She watches her sister, Stella, flirting in a cafe. Yun-sang confronts Stella outside, accusing her of being a liar. Stella, looking guilty but too focused on cash to care, rummages through Yun-sang's suitcase like she's digging for treasure. Yun-sang's last hope is her sister, but Stella grabs the cash and walks off, leaving Yun-sang sobbing on the ground. Tan's watching, wondering if he's supposed to swoop in like a knight in shining armor or just stay out of it. Tan's surfer buddy Jay came and saw Yun-sang. He went to her and grabs her bag, thinking it's full of drugs. Spoiler alert, it's just grain powder. Cue the surfer having an allergic reaction and sneezing his way into the ER. Yun-sang points out that she's the one who got robbed, but Tan's too busy storming off like a drama queen. A cop confiscates her passport because apparently that's the procedure now. Tan returns, claiming Yun-sang is his girlfriend just to get the officer off their backs. Yun-sang, with nowhere to stay, accepts his begrudging help. He drives her to Stella's house but warns her to leave the sketchy neighborhood. She insists on staying, so he leaves. As Yun-sang waits outside, a group of men harass her. Tan returns, asking, "Want to come to my house?" Because naturally, that's the best way to avoid a plot twist involving danger. Yun-sang's jaw drops when she sees the size of Tan's house. He lounges on the couch like a pro at doing nothing, mentioning he lives alone, which makes her wonder if he's secretly running a side hustle and sketchy stuff. But Tan just moves in closer for no reason, jokingly inching his way into the creepy neighbor territory. She clutches her backpack like it's a grenade, but he shows her to her room, clearly amused by her discomfort. Later, Yun-sang sneaks into the kitchen to eat canned food in the dark. Tan catches her, and she justifies it by offering a crumpled bill because sure, that fixes everything. Meanwhile, Won's preparing for a business trip to the US, with Secretary Yoon doing the polite dance, hinting at President Choi's interest in cozying up to Jaeguk. Won's like, whatever, I'll just be over here with my superior family drama. Back at Jaeguk, Chairman Kim and Madam Young have a warm conversation, about as warm as a polar bear in the Arctic. Madam Han overhears and tries to slide into the conversation, but gets shut down by Won, who clearly doesn't have time for family pleasantries. There's also some passive-aggressive back and forth between Madam Young and Won, topped off with a reminder from the chairman to take Tan to the US for a meeting. Won's reluctantly on board, probably because he doesn't want to get disinherited today. Later, Madam Han and Madam Young go at it like two cats fighting over a tuna can, each claiming to hold more power in the family hierarchy. Tan overhears Yoon Sang's tearful phone call, pretending her sister is doing just fine in America. In an uncharacteristically soft moment, Tan leaves her a sandwich, because nothing says I understand your pain like a sandwich. The next morning, Yoon Sang can't believe the view from Tan's house. Tan, ever the realist, suggests a drive up the coast. At school, Tan attends class like a reluctant student, while Yoon Sang stands outside contemplating life, as one does when you're literally outside a classroom. She sees the Korean students with their shiny party flyers and feels a little left out, but Tan, ever the party pooper, calls those parties overrated, probably because he can't relate to not having everything handed to him on a silver platter. Yoon Sang finds out her sister bailed on her job and left unpaid bills. Her sister's ex shows up like an angry ex, but Tan steps in like the unlikely hero. This escalates, and they end up running from the situation, with Yoon Sang grabbing his hand. Rachel, frustrated by Tan ignoring her calls, gets a chat from her mom, who asks her to talk to Tan about her engagement to Youngdoo's father. Meanwhile, Youngdoo's busy scrubbing dishes at his father's hotel, probably imagining himself as the next James Bond, but only with less espionage and more dirty plates. Lee Hyo-shin is stuck in his family's expectations, struggling under the weight of their academic ambitions. They expect him to be the next Einstein, but he's just trying to survive dinner without spontaneously combusting from the pressure. Later, Youngdo greets some VIPs while still being a little brat about it, tossing out sarcastic comments like confetti. Hyo-shin doesn't take kindly to it, but Youngdo doesn't care because he's way too cool for anything resembling basic manners. In LA, Tan ignores his phone like it's a pop-up ad, while Yoon Sang enjoys her Americano with the kind of joy that only coffee in LA can give. Tan, trying to get her to be a bit more positive, presses her to focus on the good stuff. Yoon Sang watches a group of friends taking photos and texts Chan Young for help. Tan, suspicious as ever, assumes Chan Young's her boyfriend and teases her, but she clarifies he's just a friend. Tan's interest peaks, and suddenly, he's wondering how much of a friend Chan Young really is. She jokes about him being in her heart, and Tan's silent jealousy is palpable. Good luck, buddy. Tan drops Eun Sang off, then spends way too much time browsing her online posts like the world's least creepy detective. He stumbles upon a mix of quirky and serious posts about her mom's struggles with Jaeguk group. Tan's mildly shocked. Yoon Sang's about to leave Tan's house when she runs into Rachel. They recognize each other from the airport, and Rachel's suspicion meter is off the charts. Yoon Sang's now sitting in a park, alone, and probably questioning every decision that led to this moment. Back at Tan's house, Rachel confronts him about their engagement. He, in true Tan fashion, admits he agreed to avoid later marrying her. Classic Tan move. Later, Yoon Sang returns to the police officer's contact info, but Rachel, of course, tossed it. Tan steps in, finds the passport, and apologizes like it's all his fault. Just then, two mysterious men show up, looking for trouble or Tan's expensive sneakers. They flee again, hand in hand. They hide in a movie theater, where Yoon Sang gets lost in the film, struggling with the language. Tan, feeling all generous, starts translating with a little too much flair. He then turns it into a playful story about liking someone named Yoon Sang. She brushes it off, reminding him of his engagement, which he dismisses like an annoying pop-up ad. They went out and stared at the Hollywood sign. Tan, sensing her escape plan, offers to take her closer, but she politely declines, feeling he's done enough to ensure her PTSD from awkward situations. His pride stings a little. Back at his house, Tan grows suddenly silent, probably pondering the meaning of life, or just wondering if Yoon Sang would ever stop making him question everything. Meanwhile, Manager Yoon updates Tan about a mandatory family gathering. Tan's estranged brother, Won, will be there, but Tan is too busy pretending not to care. After the call, Manager Yoon meets Bo Na, Chan Young's girlfriend, who cycles through accusations and defenses. Later, Bona and her brooding senior friend, Hyoshin, have a serious chat about pills, though Hyoshin insists they're just vitamins. Tan's preparing for the stockholders' meeting, advising Yunsang to stay behind. But seeing Jae's excitement about her staying, he decided to take her with him. She stayed behind in the car while he got in. The event goes exactly as expected. His brother's icy disdain freezes all hope for reconciliation, and Tan is left standing in the water like the world's most dramatic hero. Yunsang offers a light excuse for not intervening, but Tan admits he felt vulnerable. On their drive home, Tan steers to avoid rocks, and they end up stuck in the middle of nowhere. With no cell service, and Yunsang acting like this is a horror movie, they find a small motel. Tan, probably running out of ways to make things awkward, buys them matching shirts. They share a meal, and Tan compliments her so much it gets weird. She asks about his earlier phone call, but he brushes her off. Later, Tan realizes Yunsang is pretending to sleep in the shared room, so he takes the opportunity to ponder life's great mysteries, like when she's going to finally admit she likes him. Chan-young arrives just as Yunsang is about to leave, and she lights up at the sight of her friend. Tan, unsurprisingly displeased, insists she stays until her flight, while Chan-young begins to put two and two together about Tan's identity, though he keeps it vague for now. Yunsang leaves with Chan-young, who reassures her that Tan isn't totally evil, just a little complicated. She confesses her sister's betrayal, but promises to handle things and leave. They spend the day together. Later, Rachel's mother gives her the how to handle Tan talk, suggesting she claim the trip to America was Tan's idea, because family alliances need strategic spin. Meanwhile, Young-do is forced to endure a brutal training session with his father, who critiques everything like a gym coach from hell. Young-do, tasked with picking up Rachel, resents the duty. Rachel enjoys a shopping spree with Tan, though he cuts her down with a reminder that shopping isn't a real date. When she mentions Yunsang, Tan points out that she's the one who brought her up in the first place. Their tense moment is interrupted by Young-do, who refuses to pick up Rachel, leaving her fuming like a pot about to boil over. Determined to prove Tan wrong, Rachel insists on visiting his favorite pancake spot, only to find Yunsang and Chan-young already there. Rachel barges in, mentioning their engagement anniversary like it's a trump card, making the whole room uncomfortable. Tan, ever the peacekeeper, pulls Rachel aside and urges her not to let jealousy ruin her reputation as a functional human being. Later, Rachel accompanies Won to visit his mother's grave, and they unexpectedly bond over mutual disdain for their families. Meanwhile, back in Seoul, Rachel's mom and manager Yoon have a tense exchange. Tan spends the entire day obsessively checking his phone, only to find a pair of socks Yunsang left as a farewell gift. At the airport, Rachel hugs Tan goodbye, confessing she's still mad at him. He doesn't reciprocate. Not one to let things go, Rachel sneaks into the coach section of the flight, swipes Yunsang's customs form, and jots down her address. She cynically predicts Tan will chase after Yunsang when his life inevitably implodes. Typical Rachel, always thinking 3 moves ahead. Back in Korea, Rachel gets the special stepsister treatment from Young-do, who mocks her with a sign reading, "Welcome, stepsister." They bicker during the ride, with Rachel poking fun at Tan's well-being and implying that Young-do is just a placeholder until Tan decides to show up. Young-do responds with a stinger. The tiger might have left the cave because it was never a tiger in the first place. Meanwhile, Yunsang returns home to find her apartment emptied out, with her mother gone. The landlady explains that her mother's taken a new job as a live-in housekeeper. Left with no choice, Yunsang sits alone in her empty apartment, suitcase in tow, while Tan sulks in LA, probably contemplating his lack of a romantic lead. Elsewhere, Hyoshin overhears his mother berating his tutor, Hyunju, for her inappropriate outfit. Hyunju placates her mother-in-law, but not without a little jab about who pays the bills. The next morning, Yunsang finds out her sister took off with the apartment deposit, and her mother scolds her for insulting her sister. Yunsang, already drowning in frustration, is left to wonder how they'll survive. At her mother's new workplace, Yunsang encounters the combative women from Tan's family. Madame Young glares at her before heading inside to argue with Madame Han. The argument spirals out of control, with insults flying left and right. Madame Young delivers a slap that echoes through the house, asserting her power. Yunsang, wide-eyed, witnesses the family dysfunction firsthand. The feud is interrupted when Won arrives, and the women quickly regain their composure, which somehow adds a darkly comedic touch to the whole scene. One gives Yoon-sang an odd task, asking her to deliver medicine to the chairman. When Yoon-sang introduces herself, One brushes her off, claiming work obligations. Before leaving, the chairman urges him to reconcile with Tan, but One rejects it, citing the lack of love in his upbringing. Meanwhile, Madam Han, noticing One's trip to LA, presses him for details about Tan. One shuts her down, leaving her frustrated. Tan, feeling the weight of family rejection, contemplates the bitterness in his relationship with his brother. Yoon-sang dines with her mother and questions the household power dynamics. Madam Han cuts in, reminding everyone of their place. Yoon-sang swallows her pride and thanks her for the temporary shelter. The next morning, she apologizes tearfully to her mother, who comforts her with a silent embrace. Yoon-sang's life becomes a blur of part-time jobs while Tan revisits places they went together. He stashes their couple shirt in a drawer, avoiding the painful reminders. Yoon-sang calls Chan-young to repay her debt, only to find he's about to return to school. At Jaeguk, Madam Han eagerly anticipates Tan's return, but the chairman suggests Tan stay away if he's afraid to face his brother. Tan, still in LA, reflects on the loneliness of his family and the pain of their estrangement. He writes in his journal, "One who wants to wear the crown, bears the crown, and decides it's time to return to Korea." Tan confronts One upon his arrival, announcing that he's staying. One warns that peaceful coexistence is impossible before storming off. Madam Han, thrilled at his return, buzzes around him, but Tan's focus is on his father's cold indifference. His arrival stirs old memories of Eun-sang, with remnants of her, like her socks and a dream catcher, reminding him of what he left behind. Unbeknownst to Tan, Yoon-sang is living in the same house, keeping her distance. They miss each other time and time again, with Tan brushing off these encounters as eerie coincidences. One morning, Yoon-sang's mother tells her to stay out for the day, urging her to avoid the rising tensions at home. Exhausted, Yoon-sang ends up napping in a convenience store, where Young-do watches her with amusement. Elsewhere, Bona reconnects with Chan-young, pretending to care little about Tan while spinning wild stories about their past. Meanwhile, Tan stumbles upon an old post from Yoon-sang and responds, leaving her bewildered when she realizes he's still logged into her account. Their playful online banter continues, with Tan stubbornly refusing to log out. In the house, Tan finally learns from his mother that the housekeeper's daughter is named Cha Yoon-sang, and a light bulb goes off in his head. He rereads her old messages, slowly piecing together her resentment toward his family. Tan, desperate for confirmation, sends Yoon-sang a message asking what she's doing. When she replies she's drinking water, Tan rushes to the kitchen, hesitating just outside the door. Finally, he peeks inside to find her standing there, Cha Yoon-sang, drinking a glass of water. The next morning, Tan watches Yoon-sang head off to school while moping by the window. He asks his mom about One, only to learn that One moved out because of him. Meanwhile, One gifts Hyunju a necklace, but she's clearly uncomfortable, like she just received a coupon for a free awkwardness session. His attempt at reconciliation goes down faster than a sinking ship. Later, Tan visits One's hotel, but One avoids him. Back home, Madam Han is preparing a meal, and Tan nearly has a panic attack when Yoon-sang gets mentioned. This family's emotional landscape is like a minefield. At school, Yoon-sang zones out, thinking about Tan like a lovesick puppy. Later, Tan, showing up in his flashy car like he's auditioning for a role in Rich Boy, Poor Girl, teases her about Chan-young's phone number. She reluctantly gives in just to get him to leave her alone. Tan steals her contact, promising to log out of her account, but leaves her protesting in his dust. Tan, reflecting on his failed reconciliation with One, agrees with manager Yoon that the real issue is their father. Meanwhile, Tan's father is quietly spying on both sons, with a suspicious eye on Yoon-sang. Later, Yoon-sang's mother finds her daughter's modest school questionnaire. Tan, trying to avoid Yoon-sang the next morning, ends up teasing her, asking when she'll buy him dinner, but she calls him out for never calling like he promised. Classic Tan move. Bona, in full-on panic mode over Tan's return, pretends not to know anything, because that's how you deal with emotional chaos. Deny, deny, deny. Chan-young teases her mercilessly. Bona eventually runs to Rachel, who also pretends she has no idea. Rachel calls Tan, but he briefly answers and then hangs up, leaving her simmering in irritation. At Jaeguk Mansion, The chairman offers to enroll Yoon-sang at Jaeguk High, but she's skeptical, like anyone would be when you're offered too much. Later, Rachel runs into Yoon-sang at the uniform shop, accusing her of ignoring her warnings from America. Yoon-sang, with the kind of calm, snaps Rachel's name tag off her chest, an unspoken reminder of Rachel's underhanded antics on the plane. Young-do watches from a distance, smirking like a cat who's gotten into the cream. He declares Yoon-sang the winner of this round, leaving Rachel fuming. Young-do then intercepts Yoon-sang, probing about her relationship with Tan and Rachel. When she refuses to play along, he jokes about them being on the same team. Yoon-sang, done with his nonsense, reminds him she doesn't owe him an explanation. Meanwhile, Tan finds an old box of belongings in the wine cellar and hides when Yoon-sang walks in. She calls Chan-young to confirm she's repaid her plane ticket, signaling her official break from America. Tan calls her while she's walking back, directing her attention to the second floor. She turns, spots her dream catcher, and bam, she's face to face with him. Yoon-sang realizes Tan knows everything, his family's mess, her situation, the whole deal. Tan admits it. Unable to process, she walks away, eyes brimming with tears. The next day, Yoon-sang arrives at Jaeguk High, immediately overwhelmed by its wealth. The lack of a uniform doesn't help either. Bona greets her. Myung-soo, ever the optimist, tries to lighten the mood by being his usual, friendly self. Tan makes a grand entrance like it's his own personal runway show, bluntly addressing the gossip surrounding him. Rachel is his fiancée, Bona is his ex, and Chan-young is Bona's new boyfriend. From a distance, Hyoshin watches with dry amusement, thinking to himself, "This is like Lucifer walking into a school of Satans." Things take a turn when Young-do approaches Tan. They exchange pleasantries, but there's an undercurrent of pure rivalry between them. Just when it seems like things are about to explode, Yoon-sang walks into the crowd, blissfully unaware of the storm she's walking into. When she looks up, all eyes are on her. Talk about a spotlight moment. Tan questions her lack of a uniform, and Young-do quickly jumps in, adding fuel to the fire. Chan-young intervenes, pulling Yoon-sang away, though it's clear he's now on Bona's bad side. Rachel tries to get involved, but Young-do mocks her, and Tan sarcastically pulls her back, intensifying the rivalry further. Young-do eventually retreats. Rachel confronts Tan, hurt that he didn't tell her he was back. Tan brushes her off, dismissing her feelings in light of their parents' decisions. Chan-young explains the social hierarchy at Jaeguk High to Yoon-sang, advising her to keep a low profile as a scholarship student, which leaves her uneasy about her place in the school system. In class, Yoon-sang introduces herself under the watchful eyes of Tan and Young-do. When a student asks about her admission, Tan redirects attention by announcing himself as a transfer student. Tan visits Hyoshin, and Bona freaks out, thinking he's here to fight Chan-young over her. Classic Bona. Myung-soo stops Yoon-sang, asking if she's a charity case or nouveau riche. She looks to Bona for help, but Bona's no help at all. Tan calls her overnight riches, and Yoon-sang just walks away. Outside, Young-do trips her just to catch her, and says she's his, but only to fetch things for him. Tan shows up, and Yoon-sang runs away, making Tan mock Young-do's no friends vibe. Later, Tan explains things to Yoon-sang, who asks why he turned her into a millionaire. He says sticking with him will fix it. She wants a normal life and asks him to pretend they don't know each other. At home, Yoon-sang begs Mom to move, but Mom, tired of getting fired, reminds her it's not that simple. Yoon-sang cries, and Mom, heartbroken, says it's unfair to her too. In the wine cellar, Tan reveals he's been hiding there too. He jokes about her bad girl behavior and pressures her to stay close to him or transfer. Yoon-sang, however, insists she wants a normal school life, separate from his world. The next day, Yoon-sang joins Tan for lunch, and he admits that the harsh social rules at Jaeguk were his creation, leaving her stunned. Young-do soon joins them uninvited, turning the meal tense with their rivalry. Later, Young-do privately confronts Tan, claiming they can't coexist at the same school, and threatening to expose Tan's status as a concubine's son. Tan, unfazed, brushes it off. After school, Young-do runs into Yoon-sang during a chicken delivery. Realizing her identity, he warns her to save his number, threatening to ask uncomfortable questions if she doesn't. Tan later watches Yoon-sang nap outside and gently fixes her bandage before hanging the dream catcher above her. She finds it when she wakes up. At school, Yoon-sang looks for ways to afford a uniform and applies for a scholarship with the broadcast club, led by the skeptical Hyo-shin. She manages to pitch herself as hardworking enough to get a chance. Her day takes a dark turn when she witnesses Young-do bullying Jun-young, escalating into violence. To her shock, Tan does nothing to intervene. As Yoon-sang tries to help, Jun-young fights back, injuring Young-do. Young-do retaliates. Tan finally steps in, pulling Yoon-sang away and warning her against siding with the weak, explaining it would only cement her low status in Jaeguk's social hierarchy. Later, Young-do finds Yoon-sang at a convenience store, noting her habit of falling asleep in public. He claims it makes him want to protect her. Yoon-sang pretends to sleep, wishing for everything to just stop. Their moment is interrupted by a call from Tan. The conversation is tense, both aware of the game they're playing. Young-do, noticing Tan watching from across the street, feels the weight of the triangle taking form. Back home, Tan questions why she sat with Young-do after his warning. When Yoon-sang mentions Young-do's comment about protecting her, Tan interprets it as a threat and admits he doesn't even remember why he and Young-do hate each other. Inside, Madam Han formally introduces Yoon-sang, as if they've never met. After Tan leaves, Madam Han enlists Yoon-sang as a spy to report on his activities, reminding her of her place. Tan overhears this and looks displeased. Later, Yoon-sang finds a new Jaeguk high uniform in her room. Her mother proudly explains that she bought it, assuring her they can afford it. Yoon-sang is touched but concerned. The next morning, Tan waits at the gate, amused by how early Yoon-sang leaves to avoid him. He insists on sharing a taxi, teasing her about what she'll report to his mother, exaggerating his qualities. Yoon-sang dryly points out she has no choice in his household. At school, Yoon-sang interviews for the broadcast club, but Bona votes against her. However, when a more unpleasant candidate applies, Yoon-sang becomes the lesser evil and secures her place. That evening, Tan surprises Yoon-sang at the gate again, asking for his dream catcher and inviting her to meet him in the wine cellar. There, Tan plays the song Yoon-sang shared earlier. When she returns the dream catcher, Tan asks her to stay and listen to the rest of the song. Yoon-sang opens up, revealing the song was loved by her sister, not a man. Their conversation shifts to more personal topics. The next day, chaos erupts at school when Young-do mocks Yoon-sang for her nouveau riche background. Tan hears about the incident, but is stopped by a teacher before he can intervene. Elsewhere, Jun-young, trembling under Young-do's bullying, pleads for him to drop the lawsuit. Tan steps in. Tan punches Young-do in the face, declaring he'll kneel instead of hitting someone. A teacher breaks up the fight, and both boys are sent to Madame Young, who scolds Tan and suggests he transfer if he causes more trouble. Yoon-sang receives a call from Young-do, inviting her for jjajangmyeon. She initially refuses, but he manipulates her into agreeing by promising to drop the lawsuit. When Rachel sees them together, she calls Tan, gloating. Tan, relieved to find Yoon-sang working at the cafe, pulls her outside and demands an explanation. Yoon-sang reveals Young-do is targeting her because of Tan. Frustrated, Tan offers her an ultimatum, either leave his house or stay at school, and if possible, like him. He admits that he likes her. Before she can reply, both their phones ring. Tan ignores his, but when Yoon-sang's rings, he orders her not to answer. Yoon-sang, unimpressed, points out her very real, non-Tan-related situation and declares that's her answer. Tan snatches her phone and tells his mom to call back. Then he demands she return his feelings, like a toddler throwing a tantrum. Yoon-sang bursts into tears, begging for her phone back, but Tan pulls her into a bear hug, asking if he's crazy for wanting to hold her. He softens, asking her not to hate him, just think about it. Yoon-sang cries on his shoulder, wondering why her life has become an emotional wrestling match. At home, Tan's mom casually asks if Yoon-sang's boyfriend is richer than them, because wealth is obviously the most important thing. Tan insists the person matters more than their wealth, right before dashing off to hear the chairman's lecture on what's wrong with everything. Madame Hen grills Yoon-sang, but gets almost nothing. At the chairman's office, Tan is scolded for a school fight and sarcastically remarks about his father's complete lack of interest. The chairman tells him to avoid school problems. Tan snaps back. Like I could with my mom being the mistress. Classic Tan move. Tan finds Yunsang as she's leaving, and she immediately tells him to go away. But Tan, determined to hover, follows her, apologizing for his mother, and trying to lighten the mood. Yunsang insists he leave, but Tan reminds her it's his house. He beams, saying how happy he is she's there, while Yunsang walks off, pretending not to hear him. Later, Yunsang sees Tan's online book title, Now, As We Live Together. At school, Tan waits for her on a bench, pretending he forgot about her privacy request, and pats her head like a proud puppy before strolling away. Madame Han, nursing a hangover, successfully avoids her Heenom's scolding, and the two end up in a slightly violent pillow fight. Tan, always at his finest, waits outside the broadcast club to help with Hyoshin, joking about lobbying with his irresistible looks. Bona finishes her broadcast, and Chan Young offers her a drink. Tan, standing nearby, fumes like a jealous pot of soup. Yunsang, meanwhile, escapes with Chan Young, and Tan, unable to keep up, blocks her path, like the clingy best friend that nobody invited to the party. Bona, ever bold, confronts Tan. Do you still like me? Tan teases her, and she admits she's definitely happier with Chan Young. Tan reminds her she once had something for him, but she dismisses it, saying she's moved on. Tan, still teasing, insists he still likes her, but she walked away. Yunsang tells Chan Young she plans to spill the truth about her background, but he advises against it. He also mentions Jun Young transferring, and Yunsang regrets never thanking him. Meanwhile, Bona's friends whisper about Jun Young's departure, as if they're the true victims of charity cases. Yunsang ignores a call from Don't Pick Up, but Youngdo, ever the observant stalker, demands to know why she saved Tan's number. Yunsang quickly changes it to Youngdo. Naturally, Youngdo then tells her she's on the announcement board. She rushes over, fearing bad news, only to find an acceptance letter to the broadcast club, and a note from Tan in California. Tan plays coy but admits he found it and missed her. Yunsang ignores his confession, heading in the completely wrong direction. Rachel watches Tan and Yunsang. Hyoshin comes and stands next to her, asking if she was pissed, which she really was. Later, Tan admits to Rachel that he likes Yunsang. Rachel scoffs, "Do you want me to give you permission?" Tan shrugs, "Don't care anymore." Tan asks Rachel if they can be friends again, but she reluctantly admits she's hurt. Meanwhile, Manager Yoon questions Chairman Dad during a hospital visit about why Yunsang's mom was recommended as a housekeeper. Yoon recalls meeting Yunsang's family, who ran a Pojang matcha street food stall, and her dad's long hospital stay before passing. Manager Yoon later ran to Rachel's mom and told her he finally figured out why they broke up, and she should have been honest instead of running in circles. At a family photo shoot, Youngdo cancels the event after cheating in a judo match. Later, he shows up at Yunsang's cafe, admitting he was lonely. Tan warns him not to mess with Yunsang. After a heated argument, Yunsang leaves to get smoothies for everyone, and their rivalry continues, because why not? Tan and Yunsang share a moment in the kitchen, hiding from his mother. But when they move to the wine cellar, Tan grows increasingly jealous, questioning why Youngdo is so interested in her. Yunsang brushes it off, but Tan suggests, in all his wisdom, that Youngdo might actually be after her. Shocker. The next day, Youngdo shows up at the family photo shoot, and, surprise, things go totally off script. He demands Yunsang's customs form from Rachel, hinting at some mysterious agenda that probably involves ruining everyone's day. At school, Tan finds Yunsang sitting with Youngdo, who forces her into an awkward position. Tan tells her to leave, but Youngdo taunts him and trips Yunsang. Outside, he insists she's fine, but Tan, in full possessive mode, kisses Yunsang to stop her from answering Youngdo's call. Later, when Youngdo catches up, Yunsang shakes him off like a bad hair day. Myungsu wonders when Youngdo started bullying girls, and Youngdo admits it was just to see if tripping someone felt as fun as it looked. Bona, showing some empathy, offers Yunsang a change of clothes. Meanwhile, Tan and Youngdo go at it in the lobby like two kids fighting over the last cookie. Rachel jumps in, dragging Yunsang into the mess. Madame Young, seeing her career at risk, steps in with a "don't mess with me" glare. Yunsang frets about being bullied, unaware that Young-do might actually be into her. Chan-young reassures her, but warns that Tan's feelings for her might stir up even more trouble. Tan waits for Yoon-sang outside the school gate, but she darts away when his older brother, Won, shows up. Tan tries to talk family drama, but Won reminds him that he's more of a thorn than a brother. Tan texts Yoon-sang to avoid the wine cellar, but she's already there. Awkward. The next day, Tan tracks Yoon-sang to a movie theater, grabs her hand, and refuses to let go like a dog with a bone. Yoon-sang pulls away, admitting she likes him but can't see a future with him due to his family. Tan storms off. Meanwhile, Young-do uncovers Yoon-sang's secret background, probably while sipping coffee and smirking. At a cafe, Yoon-sang gets harassed by a bunch of privileged boys. Young-do swoops in, sending them away, only to tell Yoon-sang she should be bullied by him, not those losers. Yoon-sang fires back, calling him worse than the boys. At home, Tan watches surveillance footage of Yoon-sang, as if he's trying to solve a mystery. He stops when he sees her with her mother. Creepy? A little. But it's Tan. Yoon-sang's mother isn't mad about her skipping school. Instead, she's concerned, which is actually kind of sweet. Yoon-sang reassures her it's just a phase, like a bad haircut that grows out. The next day, Yoon-sang returns to school, fully aware that the stares are real and so are the whispers. She and Tan pass each other without acknowledging one another. Rachel corners Yoon-sang, reminding her that Tan and she are engaged, which is really just a business deal. Yoon-sang cryptically hints that Rachel will know the truth soon, because Young-do already does. Secrets revealed. Meanwhile, Madam Han pretends to be Yoon-sang's mother at the parent-teacher meeting. She volunteers to take over leadership camp slots, shocking everyone. At school, Yoon-sang's classmates quiz her about her wealth, but Tan pretends not to notice, like he's too cool for this. Young-do steps in, telling them to back off. Myung-soo bursts in with PTA gossip, claiming Yoon-sang's mum was the star of the meeting, driving up donations like a charity auction. Yoon-sang and Tan are shocked, but Rachel looks like she just ate a lemon. Tan and Young-do end up on cleanup duty, blaming each other for the mess. Tan wins though after mocking Young-do's absent mother. Madam Han, still in a good mood after the PTA meeting, admits she's curious about Tan's school life, but agrees to cut back on the drinking. Baby steps. The doorbell rings, and Tan is shocked to find Young-do at his door. He asks for Tan's mother, but before she can leave, Young-do orders her to get him a glass of water. Tan steps in, calling her mom, and introduces her openly to Young-do like it's no big deal. Things heat up when Tan, Yoon-sang, and Young-do have another awkward encounter in Tan's front yard. Young-do, clearly fed up with the whole situation, sarcastically suggests they must be siblings, to which Tan, without missing a beat, claims they're on a date. Later, Tan and Young-do clash in an elevator, with Tan trying to reason with him about stopping their petty feud over Yoon-sang. Young-do, ever the stubborn mule, insists their rivalry is far from over. At home, Madam Han senses something is off with Tan's secrecy. Tan admits they're one bad move away from their cover being blown and asks Eun-sang to back up their dating story. Eun-sang calls his bluff, warning that if her mom finds out, they'll both be out on the street. The next day, Tan drives past Yoon-sang on his way to school, but doesn't even offer her a ride. Talk about cold. As midterms roll around, Tan finishes last, while Chan-young aces the exam. Awkward. Rachel, still unfazed by Tan's love life, casually dismisses his feelings for Yoon-sang, claiming his love life has nothing to do with their engagement. Tan reluctantly agrees, but his heart's clearly not in it. Meanwhile, manager Yoon bumps into the mystery man who handed the envelope to Chairman Dad, only to find out that Won's father knows about his relationship with Hyun-ju. Won texts Hyun-ju, telling her not to wait for him. Guess that relationship's officially toast. Heartbroken, Hyun-ju cries it out, only to be comforted by Hyoshin, who gives her a brief, awkward kiss on the forehead before leaving. At breakfast, Rachel announces she wants to break the engagement, but Tan's not budging. Meanwhile, Yoon-sang faces Madam Han's questioning about her relationship with Tan. Madam Han suspects Yoon-sang might be spying, but Tan steps in, defending her. The tension hits a new high when Tan and Yoon-sang share an intimate moment in his room. At camp, Young-do continues his relentless teasing, probing for details about Yoon-sang's relationship with Tan. His taunts spark confrontations, while Tan and Hyoshin have an emotionally raw conversation about their struggles. During camp activities, Youngdoo's persistence only frustrates Yunsang further. Later, Rachel confronts Yunsang about Tan, but Youngdo, ever the interrupter, steps in just in time to stop Rachel from slapping her. Things come to a head when Tan arrives to find Youngdo, claiming Yunsang as his own. They exchange a tense, silent stare, like two gunslingers preparing for a showdown. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our video. Watch the next recaps on the screen, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.